Hi, this is Susan Broder from Speak Languages and Travel the World, here to help you improve your English with minimum effort and maximum benefit. And today, if you're watching this video, it's probably exam time and you're close to your Cambridge PET exam. So I'd like to give you some tips, 10 top tips on how to pass your speaking exam, because somehow people seem to be really worried about the speaking exam, but it's really not that difficult. You just need to be systematic and follow my 10 tips. So let me share the document with you. Where is it? Okay, and let's see if we can start. So 10 top tips to pass the PET speaking exam. Part 1 will be about personal information, which means that the examiner will ask you personal information about your family, your studies, your hometown, your free time, your job, and you'll be asked to spell a word as well. So, tip 1 is practice speaking about yourself. What does that mean? That you have to take any moment when you're in the shower or doing anything in particular to speak about yourself, just to practice, to become fluent, to relax. So you need to practice speaking about yourself and especially learn to do the spelling of your name and surname. It has to be quick like that. My name is Susan. S-U-S-A-N. You don't need to have to say, I'm not sure. So be spontaneous. Tip 2, don't just answer the questions, add information. For example, if they ask you, what's your name? Don't just say Thomas, but say Thomas, but my friends call me Tommy. Or for example, Thomas, but I prefer my middle name, Jim. So add a bit of information to any questions you answer. It shows confidence and fluency. Tip 3, use connectors such as but, however, even if, because, since, although. For example, have you got any brothers or sisters? Don't just say, yes, I have, but add on, I've got one older brother, even if we don't really get along very well. So just add a bit of information. As I said, it demonstrates fluency and confidence. Okay, part 2 of the exam is a simulated situation, which takes 2 to 3 minutes. Here you'll receive a sheet of paper on which in the center there'll be an image, maybe, I don't know, a boy with a birthday cake, for example. And then all around the image there'll be other pictures which are ideas of maybe something to give him as a present, just as an example. So with your partner, with another candidate, you'll have to evaluate the alternatives of the best present to give him, just in this example, and then come to a conclusion. So tip number 4 is listen carefully to the instructions that the examiner gives you, because he'll be setting the situation, so that's very important. And whilst he's talking, focus on the picture in the middle, because this is the one that represents the situation. Then look briefly at all the pictures around the central one and think about the situation. Is the situation about me? So I'll have to use the first person. Is it about him or her? Is it about us? Is it about them? Because if it's about him or her, you must remember to use the third person if necessary. Let's give you an example. Should he buy a piano? No, I don't think so. If he buys a piano, he'll spend more than if he buys a guitar. So if you notice, I've had to remember the S in the third person. That's fundamental for getting good marks, making sure you don't forget the S when you need it. Tip 5, so use the pictures around the central one as ideas for your discussion, but start the discussion immediately. Don't describe the pictures which are around, and don't waste time explaining the original situation. We already know that. So, for example, you can start immediately by saying, well, how about buying Tom a DVD? What do you say? In my opinion, it's better to buy a book voucher so he can choose the book he prefers. I don't think that's a good idea. Why don't we get him a... So it needs to be an interaction between the two candidates, you and your partner, and at the same time evaluating the best present in this example to buy Tom, or whatever the situation is that the examiner asks you to discuss and evaluate. Tip 6, give reasons for your opinions or ideas because, for example, so in the previous example, I said, in my opinion, it's better to buy a book voucher, and I motivated it so he can choose the book he prefers. That's what I mean by giving reasons for your opinions and ideas. Now, it's very important that the candidates speak more or less equally. So encourage your partner to interact equally in this discussion by saying, what do you think? Do you agree? You mustn't dominate your partner. You won't know your partner in advance necessarily. They might put you and a completely unknown candidate together, so you've no idea if he speaks well or badly. So you have to make sure that he doesn't dominate you, and you mustn't dominate him. If he's a weaker partner, you must make sure you encourage him enough and give him a chance to speak. And then if he's so shy he doesn't really react to your encouragement, you carry on, and the examiners will note that you've given him a chance in any case. Okay, then we get to part 3. Part 3 is describing a photograph, and you have 1 to 1.5 minutes each to do this. You'll be given a color photograph, and your partner will be given a different color photograph, and you have this 1 minute to discuss it and describe it. Now, 1 minute isn't really very long, so you've got to practice with a timer. You have to practice this very well, because you have to make sure that time doesn't run out before you've said everything you want to say. So I would dedicate the first 30 seconds in my tip 7 to describe the picture in general, using expressions such as in the foreground, at the top, on the left, and then give a general description. There are 6 people, they're dancing, they seem to be teenagers and middle-aged people together. Okay, so that's just a very general description of the situation. And you must absolutely not make a list. You shouldn't just say there's a table, there are 4 chairs, there's a dog. That is absolutely no good. If you do want to give a more detailed description, always go and add things on. So there's a table in the middle of the picture, and there are 4 chairs around it. There's a dog lying under the table. So that's not exactly a list. Again, you're already describing. But remember, you have about 30 seconds to give this general situation, because in tip 8, I explained to you that the other 30 seconds should be dedicated to describing their feelings and give reasons for your ideas. So presuming you've got a picture of people dancing, you could say they seem happy because they're smiling and laughing, or they look happy because they're smiling and laughing. Never declare something too direct. So you can't say they are happy, because you're not really sure. They look happy. So you can say they're probably, I think, but not necessarily say it is that way, because you may not know how they're feeling. So you have to describe feelings, giving reasons, and you have to also explain what they're possibly or probably doing and why you think they're doing it. So you could say they're probably celebrating their wedding because they're dancing in a formal situation and the woman is wearing a white dress, for example. You should always express your opinion as well. So I think they're having fun, and maybe add something personal. And I'd love to get married in a similar place. So very important. make a mental picture of what you're saying as you're saying it, because you mustn't repeat yourself. So you have, going back to tip 7, 30 seconds to describe the general picture, and then 30 seconds to describe feelings and what they're probably doing in your opinion, and give your opinion also on how you think they're feeling and what your personal comment to that would be. Then we go on to part 4. Part 4 is a 3-minute discussion with the other candidate. The examiner will explain to you what you have to talk about, but it's usually a topic related to the pictures in part 3. You'll have to give your opinion and explain what you prefer, and ask your partner questions and answer the questions in full. So tip 9 is listen again very carefully to the instructions the examiner gives you. That's fundamental, because he'll very probably give you 2 things to talk about, and you must make sure that you talk about them both, because if you forget to talk about one of the 2, you haven't completed the task. So talk about both things the examiner requested with your partner. Give reasons and examples for your opinions, such as, I'd rather live in the country because there's too much pollution in the cities, or I'd prefer to live in the country because there's too much pollution in the cities. And tip number 10 is to listen and respond to your partner, showing interest in what he or she says. So whilst he's talking, don't just look blankly, but say, oh, really, that's nice. Oh, that's interesting. I see. So that you can demonstrate that you're following what your partner is saying and not just daydreaming. Then, of course, your partner will have to do the same with you. It's also very important to ask follow-up questions. So, for example, if they say, oh, really? They say something interesting, you can say, oh, really? I'd love to live in the Lake District. Where would you like to live? Obviously, the questions have to be related to what the person was saying. Or if we're speaking about pollution in cities, oh, I found Athens really polluted. Have you ever been to Athens? So follow-up questions are useful, again, for demonstrating your fluency and your confidence with the language. So let's have a quick summary of all the tips again. Let's go back to the beginning. So tip number 1, practice speaking about yourself and practice your spelling. You have to be able to say your name and surname very well. Tip number 2, don't just answer the questions, add extra information. Tip number 3, use connectors, and don't always use the same ones, but vary them a little. Tip number 4, listen carefully to the instructions the examiner gives you. Focus on the picture in the middle and get a general idea of what the situation is. Tip number 5, use the pictures around the central picture as ideas to discuss this situation, but don't describe the pictures, you have to discuss the situation. Tip number 6, give reasons and opinions for your ideas, and encourage your partner to interact equally, but don't dominate. Tip number 7, describe the picture in general in the first 30 seconds, whilst tip number 8, you describe their feelings with reasons, explain probably why they're doing something and your opinion on this matter. You have only 30 seconds to do that, so plan your time well. Tip number 9, listen carefully to the instructions the examiner gives you and talk about both things the examiner has asked you to talk about with reasons and examples for your opinions. And tip number 10, when you're listening to your partner, respond by showing interest and ask follow-up questions. And if you do all that, there will be absolutely no problem at the speaking exam. You'll pass it with flying colours. You just have to practice and be confident, believe in yourself. And on the day of the exam, take a deep breath, relax and smile, and it'll all go well. And if you want to download these tips, sorry, let's stop the share. If you want to download these tips, you could click here and you can download all the tips on a PDF. And if you found this video useful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on this button. And that's all for now, and good luck in your exams. Bye for now.